This week's channeled message from the angels is telling us what will survive the coming times. What is it about a organization, a structure, a corporation that will make it either fail or thrive in the coming times? And what does it mean for us? How will we either struggle or thrive in the coming time? So welcome back to my channel, you guys. I really appreciate you being here and sharing these messages with me. The energies can be a lot to hold, and it helps so much to have us all helping hold these energies. So, and today's is bigger than usual. Today's, the energy of this message just feels huge to me. So as usual, I will start out with reading the full message. So it's a great idea to just let it flow through you. It's a little bit of a longer message. Just roll with it. And then afterwards, we will break it down and talk about it piece by piece to go into some of the deeper meanings. So for those of you who are new here, welcome. My name is Ann Tucker. I am a trance channel. I channel with the angelic realm, and I do that I go into a deep meditative state or trance, and from there I raise my awareness up as high as I can go. I go a little higher, I connect, and then messages and healing come through, which I share with you guys here on YouTube. So, and like I was saying, today's message is profound and really helpful about understanding some of the deeper changes that are going to be right on the horizon, from my understanding that we are close to these changes. And these relate to the structures, to the foundations of our civilization. So they've been talking about this stuff. They talked about it a lot in past videos when they talked about, like, about 2 years ago, they were telling us about the banking crisis. And that has already come to pass. And I don't know if that continues. They don't specifically name banking, but I certainly think that could be a part of this. The last message, they started talking about structures, and this message is all about the structures. So that's like, education structures, corporate structures, political structures, all of it. Anything that is like the foundations of our society, of our civilization. And in this message, they're talking about this change of energy. And my understanding of it is it's like this wave, which they've also been talking about, that brings in divine love. Anything that is not in harmony with that energy, anything that cannot resonate at that frequency cannot stay. So they get into detail here about what does that mean at a practical level? What does that mean for companies and corporations and schools and politicians, right? Who will stay and who will go? What will stay? And how do they need to change in order to be able to be successful? It doesn't mean that we will have a world without structure, that we won't have a world. They say that there will be some that stay. There will be structure that stays. And so, yeah, so what will that be? Anyways, fascinating and I think very helpful message. All right. I hope you guys enjoy it. I just want to let you know, if you are in New York or Los Angeles, I have 2 remaining events this year. One is coming up on September 30th in New York. If you'd like to join me there in person, these are small group events. We'll be able to sit down together, hang out, and have the deep conversations, do a little channeling, right? See what comes up. And same thing, I have 11/11, of course, in Los Angeles. So if you are in New York, September 30th, Los Angeles, November 11th of this year, 2023, come and join me. I would love to meet you. And that's on my website, antucker.com/events. All right, enjoy the message. Okay, here's what they say. Beings of light, what we share, we have thought through. Eventually, we come to bear and to bring good tidings. But in the now moment, all that we have shown bears the burden of how you are evolving. It all contains the message we entrust to your care, that you are here on purpose, to take part in an evolution of the species. This may come home to settle in your awareness as a thing of great beauty, but it also carries the ominous visions of a future materializing that is before unseen, that has never been experienced, that cannot be related to. We shy away from the disbursement of information that would lead you down the path of fear. We hesitate to inform you now and always of things that would deteriorate your current quality of life. We wish to guard you with gentle knowings, with awarenesses that can infiltrate your senses without fear. Thus, we stay away from the broader statements, from the greater involvements which shall rise. The opportunities before you now shake loose all that bears weight. They grow into the divides that will form. There is the carcass and the waste that must be thought of, there is the aftermath that will grow into disturbance. And these formations in your reality cannot be waylaid or set by. Their presence will be known. All things that are deterrents to your horizon will simplify and perpetuate themselves no longer, disintegrate without the systems they hold on to, and become the nothingness you used to know. The forebearers who brought these forward endow them with an energy that is tempting to shield, a sense of horizons unmet, of destinies foreshadowing your future. But they cannot live on. They cannot pull forward into the new now that which has been, and this we have spoken of. But what we say to you now, to the knowingness of the soul who inhabits the body, who fears the next now, we speak to the soul who you are, that in these next moments of encounter, you will come across a deregulated society, a social structure at a loss, a confounding miasma of discarded dreams. And the loss of these you will signify and make much of. It will feel a contortion of the reality as it is known, a separation from what is godly. The structures which have enabled the throughput of social progress must now change pace and become a deregulated subset of themselves, and leave behind no trace of their former consequence, but must instead embrace the separation from that structure, embrace what is now apparent, that all things that have been made for the sole purpose and aggrandizement of one's soul come at the cost of the many. These we trust you hold the truth near. These are separated from that soliloquy and brought and turned to dust. What remains, you ask? What shall be in the aftermath of these destitutions? And we say many things remain as they are. Many institutions will call themselves hindered but not harmed in full, set back but not deconstructed. And these will rise renewed, provided they remain circumspect of the energies that transform them into godlike structures. Those that pivot and take shall deprive themselves of the true north of these times. Those that survive are those that instigate the provision for all, that instigate the survival of the many, that provide the well-being for all who come near. These institutions and structures may thrive with new endowment. The generosity of spirit lifts them. We wish to bridge your knowledge now of that which falls to dust. To sense in the soul and the self there will be trauma. To know that in these times arriving soon, you will find yourselves questioning the benefits of such a trust as you have given, a trust in the divine, in the wellspring of these alterations. But we speak at large to the greater consequence of your surviving nature, of the soul life that lives and shines brighter. The inner sight will change you. The inner self elevates you. The sense of what is lost, its time has come, and the new arrival begins before you. The subtlety of this embrace stretches out, lengthening out as required. For those of you who come to terms with loss of structure, who endow these times with presence, who yearn to separate from that which was, and who reach for new beginnings, you will find the terms coming quickly. You will stretch into the next announcing moment with ease, and feel the love coursing through your veins as it bathes this plane of existence. You will sense within you the rising fear extinguished, replaced with divine presence. An awakening inhabiting your soul self, one faction, an opportunity within the great mass of humanity. And each presence, each person who rises thus shall draw you closer to the greater kindling of the consciousness you share. The senses we bring into turmoil. Thus, we share an advanced warning. We share an information regarding what will pass, so that upon its arrival, you come to terms already met, and feel the self at no loss for understanding, no loss of presence, no loss of faith in self, and surrender to the energies you are meeting, which lift you, like love itself, into awareness of the all and the many. From the space of your arrival, that contains you no longer, or what contains you no longer, becomes the catapult to reform expectation. It draws you upward, further, and beyond the many convoluted pathways through this process of ascension. It moves you into a time frame and structure which allows you to exist beyond all things unnatural, within the space of communion and connection to the divine. Within that space, your own organism conforms to a reality and expression thus imparted with the reverence of divine love. Experience is ever shifting, and a life of turmoil is often met with experiences worth knowing. But in these times before you now, the stage is set for change and difference. This arousal of the human mind, the swelling of the consciousness, it draws you forward to a perspective of clarity. From within this new stance, you gather all that has been light and life, draw it in from past endowments, and recreate a new instantiation of existence, benefiting from all that's past, informing what is now the gift of an unbridled future. So what do you guys think? Do you feel that the strength in this, like the energy that came through with this message is like super, super powerful? It's a frequency and I can feel it, and it just feels like it's just giant. It feels massive to me. And so it's this, what to me was when I first went through this message this morning. I channeled it yesterday, and when I went through this morning to add the punctuation, and I usually, like I said, I can't really usually understand it until I do that, go through and add the because I just stream of consciousness, and it just records just sort of one long sentence. So I have to go back and add in the periods and break apart the paragraphs and all that, and then I can understand what they're saying. And when I did, this one just hit me like a ton of bricks. It was like, whoa. This one just, to me, I just feel it in my heart. It just feels like, okay, I feel like I have to stretch to hold it, to hold it. I feel like we all have to stretch. It's a doozy. So let's see what you guys are saying. You're saying, here we are. The structures must become a subset of themselves. Whoopsie, I lost you. Where are you? So sorry, it just jumped. There it is. And leave behind what doesn't work. Yes. And but this part, the whole thing about the structures in which things are going to survive is really amazing to me. Hello, Amina. Happy Friday vibes from the island vibes from the Seychelles. Woohoo. And hey, Terrence from Australia. Great to meet you. And then, let's see, here we go. I lost a couple of you. There we go. Hello from Germany. Hey, Rebecca. What are you doing in Germany? Where are we going here? Sorry, it's jumping all over the place. So it's hard for me to follow. You said we'll probably need strength and faith with what will come. I think so, yeah. And I think that's what they're saying in this message is that they're saying that they are very careful about what they share with us, but that they want to share this, even though it's heavy, because they want us to be able to receive when it comes, to be in presence and to be ready to roll with it, to be ready to absorb the energies, to not be in fear. So the whole beginning of this message is saying, hey, we don't tell you stuff unless we have to. Like, we don't want to scare you. They don't want to wreck our current peace of mind by creating a lot of fear. And so they're really careful. They're saying in the beginning, they're super thoughtful about what they share. They're saying, but they need to share this with us because we need to be in a state of readiness for it so that we're not taken aback. Yeah. You're saying this is one of the best messages I've heard. So clear and hopeful. Yeah, I love this one too. I'm with you. Like, I think this one to me, like, it just feels like it's just got so much energy behind it. Elise is saying, whenever I listen to the initial message, I usually tune out and don't even hear most of the words, just feel the energy of it. And it was potent. Yeah, that's interesting, Lisa. That's super cool. Yeah, this one, like I said, had a really unusual frequency. You said the mind expanding into the soul. Yes. So like I said, the way I receive this message, the way I understand it is like in the beginning, like I said, I think they're telling us that they are really, really careful about what they tell us. They want us to know, and part of the reason they want us to know that is for our own discernment, that if you ever receive a message that feels fear-mongering, that is worded or designed to create panic or to create fear, or that's telling like you've got to do this or else, like those kind of feelings that come up of like, that is most not likely not from the angels, that they are doing their best to provide informations that are carried in a frequency of love, and that are carried in the frequency of caring, of trying. They want to prepare us, they want to let us know what's going to happen, but they don't want to create fear. So when you see those, like on YouTube, you see those thumbnails that are like, the world is ending, and like, this is the worst message ever. And people are like, clickbait, clickbait. They're like, that's not the angels. That's not it. That's not what they're going to do. They don't want to communicate through fear. And so I think it's just an important part of our discernment as we're listening, because there's a lot of messages out there right now, and there's a lot of confusion, and some of that confusion can put you into a state of fear. And they want us, it's like, listen if you want to, but know that if it's generating fear, we just have to use our discernment and recognize that, and it may even be coming from, it may be a channeled message that you're listening to. And that all channels carry the frequency of the person who they're coming through. And so they can, if that person is carrying fear, those messages can come through with fear. Even if they're from a beautiful source, they can still come through with fear. So it's very hard to be clear. I know for myself, I work super, super, super hard to try and be clear. And it's not easy. So anyways, okay, so let's dig into it and break it down piece by piece. But they say, beings of light, what we share, we have thought through. In other words, they don't share everything. They are very, very careful in how they communicate to us, because they know how powerful their words are, right? They know that we listen to these, they just carry more weight than what we hear, from like Joe at the grocery store, right? Sherry says, it's so helpful to have these messages, to know what's coming. These messages remind me, no matter what, the angels are with us and will carry us through. I think that is such a great point, Sherry. Yeah. They say, eventually we come to bear and bring good tidings. So they're like, eventually we'll be able to talk about the happy stuff. But in the now moment, all that we have shown bears the burden of how you are evolving. So it's like they really can't talk about anything else right now than this idea of like, where are we headed? What are we going through? And it all carries the burden of the fact that this is a really hard transition. So there's no way around it. They say, it all contains the message we entrust to your care, that you came here on purpose to take part in an evolution of the species. So this is at the root of it. The reason we are here right now, the reason we all signed up for this life, was because we know our species is evolving, and we are here to take part in it and to help, right? To be part of it, to help lift our species. They say this may come home to settle in your awareness as a thing of great beauty. So over time, we're going to be like, that was awesome. But in the moment, it's not going to be so easy. They say it also carries the ominous vision. So from where we are now, ominous vision, scary thoughts about a future that's materializing that is before unseen. So we don't know what the heck is coming, right? That has never been experienced, that cannot be related to. So we just don't know what we're supposed to do. Like, how are we going to be okay? That seems to be the question of the hour. So then they go on to say, we shy away from the disbursement of information that would lead you down the path of fear. So they don't tell us stuff. They're really, really careful about how and what they say. They wouldn't tell us something, even though it might be relevant, if it's going to cause us fear. That it's like they're going to always weigh that balance, right? Does it help us more to have advance warning or to not? And so they're constantly in that thought process of what is for our greatest good, right? And then they say, we hesitate to inform you now and always of the things that would deteriorate your current quality of life. And so know that that is important, that our joy, that our life experience is important, so much so that it is heavily weighted in their decision about what to share with us. They want us to be invested in our life, to be enjoying our life, to be joyful. Like that is a big part of our purpose, right? To be experiencing and feeling joy, because that raises our vibration and helps the whole process. It's a means to an end. Yeah. They say, we wish to guard you with gentle knowings, right? So in other words, they're going to try to protect us, to tell us things, but very, very gently. So with awarenesses that can infiltrate your senses without fear. Thus, we stay away from the broader statements, from the greater involvements which shall rise. So, and that I think is a reference to sort of the fear mongering of like the like, you know, the world is ending, like that. They don't do that. And that's a way to know in your own discernment, where is this message coming from? Is this a clear message, or is this message somehow containing, you know, more human frequencies of fear? Yeah, so it's just a reference to please use our own frequencies so that we're not lulled into fear. They go on to say, the opportunities before you now, I love this part, super, super interesting. The opportunities before you now shake loose all that bears weight. They grow into the divides that will form. So this is interesting to me, that all that bears weight is like, think about what bears weight. In a house, the thing that bears weight is the foundation, right? Everything, all of the weight of the roof, everything is carried down very clearly, like engineers plan it so that all the weight of the roof and all the weight of all the walls and everything are carried down onto bearing walls in the foundation. So they're saying that the opportunities, and these are opportunities, so in other words, good things, will shake loose the foundations, right? So all that bears weight, the foundations of our society is what is at risk here. And they say, or what's going to be changing. They say they grow, the opportunities grow into the divides that will form. So in other words, the foundations have to crack, the foundations have to change. And then as they change, as we find cracks in those foundations, that is where the new opportunities will start to grow. So they said there's a reason for it. There's a reason why they have to be broken. And they say, or have to break loose. They say there is the carcass and the waste that must be thought of. So in other words, in the aftermath of this, there's going to be a lot of broken down institutions and the carcasses of all this stuff, that the structures, the foundations, and that is going to have to be thought of. Like, how do we disassemble? So it's not like we transition immediately from where we are now to the new thing that's way better. They're saying there is a transition process we're going to have to go through, that the carcass and the waste, right? We're going to have to get through the unwinding, and that is probably going to be one of our more complicated times that we're going to have to get through. And that, I think, is what most of this message is about, is the in-between, as we go from the state of where we are today through the chaos and then into the new way of being. And then I think they talk later about how long is that going to be? Because that's what we want to know, right? How long are we going to be in the crazy times? So then they go on to say, this carcass and waste, it must be thought of. There is the aftermath that will grow into disturbance, and these formations in your reality cannot be waylaid or set by. Their presence will be known. So in other words, there is a time during the process of transition that we can't ignore, that they acknowledge will be difficult. And then, but they say, all things that are deterrents to your horizon will simplify and perpetuate themselves no longer. So during this transition process, anything that is holding us back in terms of the way that it's built, like the way it's structured, the foundations of it will simplify, which I think is so interesting. So, and perpetuate themselves no longer. So it's like they're boiled down to, is there anything here worth saving? And I think that's when they say simplify, it's all of the complication around a structure. Is there anything at the root of this whole structure that is to the benefit of the many? So anything that is not to the benefit of the many will fall away. And then whatever's left behind, right, it's simplified down to that core essence of, is there something good in here that we want to hang on to, right? And the other stuff, all the waste, all of the stuff that's self-serving can perpetuate itself no longer, right? Super interesting. And they say disintegrate without the systems they hold on to and become the nothingness you used to know. So and here they refer to disintegrate without the systems that they hold on to. So in other words, they're pointing to the fact that these foundations, these structures, if you think about the structures of a house, a foundation wall is tied to other things. There's braces and brackets that tie it to the rafters, that everything is one interrelated structure, that it's not a wall by itself or a foundation by itself, that it has all these ways that it's connected to the other pieces of the structure. And so, and the same thing happens in our society, in our civilization, that all these different structures prop each other up to create this kind of crazy house of cards that creates our world. So the banking structure supports the political system, supports the corporations. It's all, everything, the education system, all of it supports one another. And so they're saying that each one will then, as one falls, the next will fall. They disintegrate without the systems that held them on, that they held on to. So as one goes, they all go, right? And become the nothingness you used to know. And you're saying, I like the phrase, the time in between is the time of greatest learning. It seems meaningful in thinking about this transition. That is a really, really great point, Diane. Thank you so much for bringing that up. And I agree. It really is. It's the time that we digest it, that we analyze where we've been, that we understand ourselves, which is really a big part of our mission of being here, is processing and understanding and emotionally processing it, right? And then sharing that understanding with our higher self and the collective. Teresa saying, red tape is not to the benefit of the many. First thing that came to mind to look at in a positive light. Yeah, so true. And Mike is saying, I'm feeling my inner knowing far outreaches my outward knowledge of the constraints of the society we are rising and growing out of. Very, very true. And I think that they say here, they're speaking to our inner soul, like that part of us that's deep down that probably knows a lot more about this than we are allowing to come to our conscious awareness. You're saying interest charges and compounding will definitely be eliminated. Yeah, I think that finance, banking, all of that, and the angels talked about banking. They talked before, you guys know, they talked about the banking crisis, and we've seen that unfold. And it's unfolded so far just exactly as they described it, which is amazing. But also I'm starting to expect that. But I don't know that that's done yet. Like, I think there may be more to that. So, and that may be part of all of this. So we will see. All right, so they go on to say, the forebearers who brought these forward endow them with an energy that is tempting to shield. And I think this is interesting. So the forebearers who brought these forward endow them with an energy that is tempting to shield, a sense of horizons unmet, of destinies foreshadowing your future. So this makes me think of forebearers are like our ancestors, the people who came before us, who created, right? Think about like the Constitution of the United States and the stories of ourselves as a people, right? Our culture, these things that are like ways we define ourselves. Like I am an American. I have these particular cultural values. I have this there's certain aspects of that culture that inform who I am, that are tied to the way our society is structured, and that's true in every country. And so I think that there's the strength of those stories. It creates a vision for people, right? And that vision is usually around progress, right? And about greatness. How do we become great? It's like, we're going to land on the moon and that's how we're going to be great. Or the progress of the information age or the industrial age of progress. Like, think about these stories that have been told generation after generation about how we are moving forward. And these are stories that are like built into our DNA at this point. And so that is something they're saying, it's tempting to hold on to that because we are just so conditioned. Like, so many of our hero stories are around that, around these ideas. And so, and it's the sense of horizons unmet, of destinies foreshadowing your future, that it's like that this is the path forward, is to buy into these structures and to buy into these ways of being. And they're saying they're tempting to hold on to those, but they say they cannot pull forward into the new now that which has been. And this we have spoken of. So basically saying those stories and those narratives can't stay, that we have to let them go. Yeah. And they go on to say, but what we say to you now, to the knowingness of the soul who inhabits the body, who fears the next now, we speak to the soul who you are. So they're really trying to go deep into us at this point, into those of us, to that part of us that knows what's coming, that might feel apprehensive. They're trying to speak to that deep, deep side of ourselves, and they're a deep part of ourselves. And they say that in these next moments of encounter, you will come across a deregulated society, a social structure at a loss, a confounding miasma of discarded dreams. So this is tough. Like they're not washing over this with like happy, rose-colored glasses. They're saying, yeah, that speaking deep to the soul who has fear, they're saying yes, but what you're fearing, and some of that reason why we have fear is because we don't know. Like we don't know what's like specifically, what's it going to be like? And they're saying, yep, deep soul, yep, deep part of you, what you're feeling is accurate, what you're feeling is right. And they're saying that in these next moments of encounter, you will come across a deregulated society, right? Society will be like, where is our anchor? What are we working towards? How do we move forward? Like, what is forward? And all of that becomes like, where's our bearings? And then a social structure at a loss. So it really is like the things that we thought of as being so predictable, things we could count on, we can't anymore. A confounding miasma of discarded dreams. And that's one of the hard things, because that affects everybody. And that's the part that is heart-wrenching. That's the part I think we're going to have a hard time processing, is all of those people that we know and don't know, that we care about or have not even met, that have dreams that don't make any sense anymore. And so how do they get their bearings, especially if they've not tuned into any of this, right? That they have no preparation, no understanding, and they feel just like a leaf in the wind, just being blown like, oh my gosh, what just happened to me? And those are the people that I think that's the part that I think they're really saying, like, this is not going to be easy, that is going to happen if this happens. But that would be a result of this. So, and they're saying the loss of these you will signify and make much of. So they're saying they don't want to sugarcoat it, that we will feel this and it will be hard. And they're saying it will feel a contortion of the reality as it is known, a separation from what is godly. So they're really trying to say is like, there will be some sad, sad times for people. And they said, but then they go on to say, the structures which have enabled the throughput of social progress must now change pace and become a deregulated subset of themselves and leave behind no trace of their former consequence. So they're going in here, and after that last heavy paragraph, there is a brighter spot coming up. So just so we know, like, it doesn't end there. Like, they do bring us back around to like, and it's going to be okay. But they're saying here that so these structures which really have been needed up until now, like all these structures that are falling apart, have served a purpose up until now. They helped us to grow the social structures, the civilization that has given us a higher quality of living for humanity in general than we've ever experienced in, before. And so like there has been a purpose to it, but now it has gotten to the point where these expressions of have become extreme, and it's no longer for our highest and best. So the structures which have enabled the throughput of social progress must now change pace and become a deregulated subset of themselves. So, and this is like taking things apart, right? And what do we keep? What do we let go of? What are the things that are in alignment with this energy and what is not, right? And leave behind no trace of their former consequence. So I think this is an interesting part, is I think it's true that our world has become like the gods of our society are the corporations, right? And they're saying that they can't have no trace of their former consequence, right? But must instead embrace the separation from that structure. So if they're going to survive, they have to let go of that former consequence and embrace a different way of being as a structure. It has to be a different type of structure. Embrace what is now apparent, that all things that have been made for the sole purpose and aggrandizement of one soul come at the cost of the many. And this is like one of those kapow statements, because it's saying, like, think about, there was a time, and I don't know if this was in the 50s or the 60s or the 20s, I don't know, earlier, when did corporations first start forming? So back when there were the first corporations that existed, and this is in the United States, I believe, but the first corporations had as their charter the benefit of everyone. Like they saw themselves as social institutions here for the benefit of the populace. That almost like in the same way we'd think of as a school, right? But they were corporations, and they thought of themselves as organizations here to provide a living and to provide, needed items and things like that, services that were required. So they were for the social good. And then there's this one economist that came along, and there was investors and the stock market and all this kind of stuff. And this one economist said, no, that is incorrect. The purpose of the corporation is to serve the shareholder, not the greater good. It is to serve the interests of the shareholder. And that was a massive shift in how we perceive the role of the corporation. And so from that time forward, it's been about individual gain. It's been about the investor saying, I need my return now. I don't care about the greater good. I want a return. I need my interest payment or my dividend or whatever it is. And so there's that piece of it. There's also, think about the leadership of those corporations. And I'm not just, it's all systems, it's all organizations. Same thing with the leadership of huge institutions like universities. How many of those are built on ego? Right? Like are built on the idea of being self-serving. Like how many institutions have professors that never ever step in a classroom, right? That all it's about is publishing and attracting more donations to the school. And they never even meet a student, right? And so it's really about emphasizing the growth of the institution, the growth of the ego of the person running the institution. And that's corporations for sure, but it's everything. It's politics. It's about self. So anywhere where it's about self, about growing the one, right? The individual or growing that one particular institution and not thinking about the greater good. Anywhere that happens, right? They're saying that's the way it used to be. They said that embracing what is now apparent, that all things that have been made for the sole purpose and aggrandizement of one soul come at the cost of the many. These we trust you hold the truth near. They're saying, they're asking us, hold the truth, like hold them accountable, hold the truth against these structures. Like don't let up, hold the truth there. They say these are separated from that soliloquy and brought and turned to dust. So, and I love the use of the word soliloquy here. So a soliloquy is, if you take the word solo and liloquy, those together means to speak alone. Like solo is alone and liloquy is like to speak, it's the tongue. So to speak alone, in other words, it's talking to yourself. And think about the meaning of that if we know that our words are powerful, our words are creative, like that our words literally create things in the world. And to have a soliloquy is someone who is talking to themselves, that they're all about the self. Their words are for no one else. They're only for themselves, right? So it's such a perfect choice of words. They're saying they are separated from that soliloquy. They can't keep on having a conversation that's only about themselves. And they are brought and turned to dust. Like, wow. Wow, 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 you guys. Like, poetic and amazing to me. And you're saying, you see, I am going to feel great when I finally know how to love. That is yes. And thank you for your vulnerability and willingness to be open about that. That is a process to learn how to love. It is. Like I spent many years at the beginning of my life with my heart closed and didn't know it, and we have that as conditioning from our childhood. And it took me time to open my heart again. Yeah. To learn how to love. And Mike says, for me, it was safe to stay in denied awareness rather than embrace, bringing it to acceptance of my real and true knowing of myself, and as a soul returning home in the light. Yeah, it is such a process. You're saying that is so true. Our European insurance systems suffer the same issues. Interesting. The domination of the knowledge put out into the field. Yeah. So I think it's a very, very potent this message. That's why I say I feel this incredible strength behind this message. They go on to say, okay, here's where we start to get a little bit lighter. We've been going through the heavy part of the message. Here it gets a little lighter, you guys. What remains, you ask? What shall be in the aftermath of these destitutions? And a destitution is a life-threatening poverty or want. So when these institutions their life is threatened, right, to the point because they are brought to having nothing, right? When, in other words, whatever they're built on, whether it be they lose all their money or they lose all their support or whatever they lose, but it's life threatening. So the aftermath of these destitutions, of these structures. So what remains? And they say, and we say many things remain as they are. Okay. What stays? They say many institutions will call themselves hindered but not harmed in full. All right, now we're talking. Okay, so what do we get to hang on to? Not that we want to hang on to, but a little something, like a little structure is a good thing. They go on to say set back but not deconstructed. And these will rise renewed, provided, and this is the good part, provided they remain circumspect of the energies that transform them into godlike structures. Kapow, right? So, and that is such a simple way of saying it and so all-encompassing, because they're not drilling down into like the 10 commandments of like they shall not do this and this and this, they shall not. No, it's just the number one most important rule. Don't do anything that transforms them into a godlike structure. It's a blanket thing. If they ever create any policies, any ways of being and doing business that give them so much power or so much control that they become a godlike structure, then boom, done, game over. They can't do it, right? To me, that is just such a powerful, clear statement of like an operating statement, what should guide them. They go on to say those that pivot and take. In other words, they have this disaster and they say, okay, great, we'll just regroup and we'll try to go back to business doing the same way. How can we get more for us, right? They go back, they just find a new way of being in business that is still about taking for themselves. Those that pivot and take shall deprive themselves of the true north of these times. So they will miss the point, right, if they do that. They say those that survive are those that instigate the provision for all. So this is what is necessary. If they want to succeed, if corporations, education institutions, politicians, everybody, any existing structures that want to survive, they need to instigate the provision for all that instigates the survival of the many. Those that provide the well-being for all who come near. These institutions and structures may thrive with new endowment. The generosity of spirit lifts them. So in other words, if this happens, if they change and have this new focus of focusing on providing for everyone, focusing on the greater good, they will be infused with this new energy. And in the same way that we are lifted, they will be lifted. So there will be structures that survive. And it's just, are they able to become this new energy? Are they willing to let it in? Just like us, like we have to let it in and let it raise us. So do the structures of our society. And if they do, they will be lifted, right? And it makes me think, I was reading that you guys have heard about the devastation in Maui, and I understand it's been really like there has not been access to services, and to like the people there are like no help is getting through for a variety of different reasons. Like none of the aid that they're meant to be getting is getting to the people who need it. That's my understanding from what I've been reading. But there are certain corporations that are stepping up and providing for the all and you know at their own expense. So we have Costco, I understand, is there providing generators, and other things. I understand Starlink, and Starlink I think does this all the time when there's massive disruption like earthquake and things fall apart. Starlink comes in and provides satellite dishes so they can get connected, which then enables emergency services and everything else. Because all of this, you know, all the cell towers are destroyed. So how are people going to be able to get connected to coordinate emergency services? So Starlink, which is a satellite service, and interestingly, these are both corporations from this area where I live, from the Seattle area. But it's just an example of the fact that that's the kind of behavior that we want to see in our societal structures, right? And it doesn't mean that they need to operate at a loss. They can't operate at a loss because then they don't support anybody. But they have to have a way of being that's not about self-aggrandizement, that's not about providing only for themselves, about growing and getting and getting and getting, right? It has to be about serving. Yeah. So, all right, you're saying, where is it? I'm sorry, let me catch back up with you guys. You say, let's see, Elizabeth is saying, wow, I love it about that phrase, me too. And you say, LOL, God's gift to the world. And that is how it feels sometimes, right? Like with the leaders of these big organizations, it feels like there's just a lot of ego sometimes. And Dashini says, I know some 20 years ago, I spoke prayers for what you are now reading out as a message from the angels. Oh, how cool is that? How cool is that? So we'll just call you the great manifester. You created it. All right. So next paragraph, they say, we wish to bridge your knowledge now of that which falls to dust. To sense in the soul and the self, there will be trauma. So here's they're saying they want to bring this home to us, to help us understand and to feel. They want us to feel these feelings before they happen in reality, so that when they come, we are prepared and it doesn't make us fall backward, that we don't lose sight of what we know. And they're saying, so they wish to bridge your knowledge now of that which falls to death, to sense in the soul and the self there will be trauma. So we need to really come to terms with that in advance. They say to know that in these times arriving soon, you will find yourselves questioning the benefits of such a trust as you have given, a trust in the divine, in the wellspring of these alterations. They're saying it's going to be tough, especially seeing the kind of pain I was talking about, where we see people who lose their dreams, who don't know a way forward. And these are good people, right? These are people that are kind, sweet, loving people who just may not be into this whole woo-woo thing, and they haven't heard about all this, right? But they certainly don't deserve hardship by any means. Nobody does. Nobody does. And you will look at those people and be like, why is this happening to this lovely person? And that's the part where we say, where is there the divine in that? What's divine about that? And that may cause us to question the benefits of the trust we gave, right? To say, okay, wait a minute, I was all for this until I realized who was going to be hurt, right? And so they say if we know that at the core of all these changes is spirit. So what good is spirit if it's letting all these people be hurt? And they go on to say, but we speak at large to the greater consequence of your surviving nature, of the soul life that lives and shines brighter. The inner sight will change you. The inner self elevates you. And they're saying, like, this is a passage we have to get through, and what's on the other side is so much better. And the goal is to bring as many people with us, to bring as many people through as possible, right? And yes, it's not easy. And yes, there will be these moments where we question, but to recognize that they're saying at large, the greater consequence of your surviving nature, right? That nature, that is our soul, right? It's the balance inside of us. It's this harmony we're trying to achieve within humanity. And so we're trying to bring all these parts that in the same way that you have gone through hardship in your life and it served for your awakening. Like, most of us didn't awaken by choice. We went through hardship and it caused us to wake up. And this is that moment for many, 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 many people, that this will be the hardship that brings them to awareness. And we can look at that and be like, oh my gosh, I wish they didn't have to suffer. And I wish they didn't have to suffer. But you probably know, and I know, I would not have woken up if I hadn't suffered. So, of the soul life that lives and shines brighter, the inner sight will change you. The inner self elevates you. This is the promise right on the horizon, is that things will be better for us, for all of us. The sense of what is lost, its time has come. So saying that the stuff that's leaving, we don't want it anymore. It's not good for us. And the new arrival begins before you. The subtlety of this embrace stretches out, lengthening out as required. So they're saying, this is an interesting sentence here, the subtlety of this embrace. So that as the light comes in, as these new opportunities come in, it's subtle. That they're saying that they don't come in like a rush. Like, imagine that, like if you've ever seen those videos of like dogs that are like at the Humane Society, that someone's coming in to adopt them and they're super, super traumatized, and they've been through who knows what, and they're cowering in the corner, and the person who's trying to reach this dog doesn't just like rush in all at once and like start hugging the dog, because the dog would freak out because they're so traumatized. The person has to come in slowly. Sometimes they come in and they'll just sit next to the dog until the dog, in the hand, put treats in front of them and slowly try to lure them, into trust again. Just, they have to make the dog relax. And that's how we are. That it's the subtlety of this embrace. So that as this divine energy comes in to the people who are traumatized, who've lost their dreams, who can't find a way forward, it can't rush in like and hit them on over the head and be like, isn't this great? Aren't you so happy? They're going to be like, no, this stinks. Like, what about my life? It has to come in slow, right? And they're saying it lengthens out as required. So whatever time a person needs, they will get. That's the message. That if a person takes more time to let go of their pain, to be open, to trust again, to be open. Think of that dog in the corner. How long does that dog need for the person just to sit there patiently and wait, and to put treats out and to just not touch the dog, to just let the dog relax? How long does that dog need? Well, that's going to be the thing for us, is how long does each individual need before we can feel the presence of spirit around us and be open to seeing the blessings that are coming. And so they're saying that's as much as any one person needs. That's how much time is going to be available. So I think that is a beautiful message. And you're saying the structures for our new world will be created by corporations, governments. Hard to know. Yeah, I the way I read it, Mary, super interesting. I think they're saying that there will be some of the current structures that pieces will fall away, but some pieces will stay, those pieces that are in alignment with the new energy, or new structures will come forward that are in alignment with the new energy. But it won't be a world without structure. It won't be a world where there's like no companies and no teams and no, no schools. There will be schools, there will be companies, or maybe even corporations but they will look and feel much different. They will have to be in alignment with the new energy so that it will not be the way that it's been. And so some of those corporations may be ones that are currently in existence, but they will be brought down and they will have to change. And those that try to pivot to stay the way they are, that try to just come at it from a new tack, those will not succeed. But those that feel the energy, those that change with the times, those may survive and even be lifted up and be more successful. So it will be very interesting to see. And so maybe you can even look out into your world and say, what are some corporations or companies that you are aware of that live by a mission, right? A mission to serve, a mission to do good, right? And you see these pop up all the time, lots of little startups, but even some bigger companies like Patagonia comes to mind as a company, that they are very mission driven and they provide amazing benefits for their employees. And it's all about the employees. The whole company is about the employees, right? And there's a lot of companies out there like that. And these are the ones I think that we're looking towards as holding the new kind of energy that we want to hold. Like Patagonia, I think they have everything from on-site childcare to some percentage. I don't know what their policies. I remember reading about this years ago, and I haven't looked at it in years, but I'm sure they haven't changed. But it was impressive. And this was years ago, 20 years ago, that I think I was looking at case studies about them. And so the groundbreakers for their time. Yeah. And you're saying so true. I wouldn't have woken up if I didn't suffer either. Yeah. I think it is a thing. Humans, we don't want to change. We don't change unless we have to. And you're saying without pain and suffering, I would have never had awakened out of it. Well, you just said it. Yep. Yep. And, you're saying, I shall get all the time I need to learn how to love. That is comforting. Yes. As much time as each person needs. Yeah. And you say, B corporations are a good example that take responsibility for others. Oh, interesting, Mary. Is that a different, so I've heard of can you give us a definition of what a B corporation is? That would be helpful. All right. So going on, they say so as opposed to those who need a lot of time, here is an alternative. They say for those of you who come to terms with loss of structure, who endow these times with presence, who yearn to separate from that which was, and who reach for new beginnings, you will find the terms coming quickly. So in other words, just in the same way that somebody who needs more time will have it, if you are ready to go, raring to go, if you've heard all these messages, if you've already come to terms with the loss, if you're willing to accept that we have to go through transition and you feel ready, then you can move through that transition very, very quickly, right? They're saying you will find the terms coming quickly, right? So in this specifically, endow these times that who come to terms with loss of structure, who endow these times with presence. In other words, don't escape, right? Don't leave, don't go out of body. Who yearn to separate from that which was, and who reach for new beginnings. You will find the terms coming quickly. You will stretch into the next announcing moment with ease and feel the love coursing through your veins as it bathes this plane of existence. So at the same time all this craziness is happening, if people are really locked into trying to holding on what they will feel is destruction. Those who are turning around and looking at the future and who are feeling into what is coming will feel what this really is, which is a wave of love. And think about that if you have a wave of love, a higher frequency wave that's coming through, anything, if it's a potent wave, anything that is not alignment with that wave will be pushed out of the way. So for those of who are holding on to those things that are not in alignment, it feels like destruction. But if you turn and face the wave, what you feel is this lovely wave of love. Right? And that one wave does both things. It pushes away everything that is not, because it is just a thing about frequency. If you're not a match, you're out, right? If you are a match, you connect. And so this is the new wave that's coming to permeate the reality. So if this new frequency, this higher frequency is becoming this reality, anything that's not in accordance with it will fall away. It has to. It's I would like to say it's science. Right? It's sciencey here because that's how resonance and frequency works. So it will fall away. There they go on to, you stretch into the next announcing moment with ease and feel the love coursing through your veins as it bathes this plane of existence. You will sense within you the rising fear extinguished. Right? Replaced with divine presence. So this is what is causing the destruction, is the shift in frequency. And so we will feel it as we move into it, as we let go, as we turn into it, as head into the wave, let it wash through you. You will feel divine presence, an awakening inhabiting your soul self, And here, this part is interesting. So the awakening inhabiting your soul self, one faction, an opportunity within the great mass of humanity. So in other words, as you accept it, you are one soul, right? Your soul self. As you turn into it, you awaken, experience this rush of divine love. You are one faction. A faction is a small, organized, a group within a larger one. So you are one cell within a larger body, or potentially one larger group of people within a larger, the all of humanity, right? One faction, one self, that within an opportunity within the great mass of humanity. So what they're getting to here is that it takes one person at a time to turn and face the wave. That is that you do it and I do it and we all do it. Then we become one faction within the larger structure of humanity, right? And each presence, each person who rises thus shall draw you closer to the greater kindling of the consciousness that you share. So as each of us turns and faces that wave and accepts it and embraces it and feels that divine presence, then gradually the tide will turn and everyone. The goal is everyone. We want everyone to turn and feel the love, right? That's the goal. So we want to bring everybody with us. And each person, one by one, we have to focus on ourselves. If we do it, then that creates the gradual turning of the tide, right? So you do it, I do it, we all do it. We bring more people to do it, and then it's like a shifting of the consciousness. Yeah. And you're saying, I feel a reinventing of the self is coming. Yeah, I definitely think that's true. And Mary says, okay, so B corporations vow to work at becoming inclusive, equitable, and regenerative economic system. That is super, super cool. Yes, that is really, really cool. I wonder, do they get special, so it's not quite a charity or a nonprofit then. It's a corporation. That's interesting. Okay. And Teresa says, I think the light workers among us have helped to bring about this rise in frequency. So feel sure we are already for this 100%. Yeah, that's really, really true. And I think that even though we have been doing that, I think they're really trying to lay out in this message the parts they're trying to acknowledge, even though we may be 100% on board and may be working towards it right now, that we may still come to this point where we look around us and see the devastation or see the people who feel devastated, and it will hurt our hearts. And to know that, and that's why they're warning us now. And the use of the word warning, I think they're even careful about that, but the point of it is to tell us so we can process those feelings now, so that when they happen, we are really focused on staying present and turning towards the light. Yeah. And you're saying, well, I've never heard of such B companies before. Yeah, that's a very cool concept. It takes the term catching the wave to a whole new level. It does. All right, they go on to say, the senses we bring into turmoil. So they're saying this is going to be turmoil for the senses. They're recognizing, they're saying that, and they're saying they're recognizing this shift in consciousness is divinely inspired. So it will bring turmoil to the senses. Thus, we share an advanced warning. So this is why they are telling us, is because they want to help calm our fears. We share an information regarding what will pass so that upon its arrival, you come to terms already met. That is beautifully said. You come to terms already met. So in other words, we've already made sense of it in our own heads before it happens, right? And feel the self at no loss for understanding, no loss of presence, no loss of faith in self. And here's the big part, and surrender to the energies you are meeting, which lift you like love itself into the awareness of the all and the many. So this is the thing, is this wave, it lifts us, right? It is divine presence. And yes, it means that anything not in alignment has to go, and that's tough. But if we just turn into it and let it move through us, then we are in it. Like we're in that amazing experience and we get to stay there, right? So that is cool. This is good news. With all of that, it is still good news. All right. They go on to say, from the space of your arrival. So this is so in other words, once we get there, once we get to that we let that love in, right? And we turn into the wave, we let the love in from the space of our arrival, from the space of getting there. What contains you no longer becomes the catapult to reform expectations. So in other words, letting go catapults us forward. Letting go of what was helps us to catapult into this new way of being. It draws you upward further and beyond the many convoluted pathways through this process of ascension. So what they're saying here is that there are loads and loads of ways that people will process what happens. Every person has their own pathway. And that some of those pathways are going to be really convoluted and difficult because they will be trying to do things the old way. They will be trying to hang on to what was, or they will be in mourning for what was, right? And so that's a really convoluted, difficult pathway because they're resisting what's coming in. But if you let go, right? Anybody who lets go and turns into the wave, then that what contains you no longer, all the stuff you let go of, becomes the catapult to reform your expectations. It throws you forward. It draws you upward, further and beyond, right? All of those crazy pathways. So you don't have to go through the crazy. You don't have to go through the pain, right? You can literally catapult yourself by letting go and move into this new way of being, which is a super, super cool thing. Super cool thing. It moves you into a time frame and structure which allow you to exist beyond all things unnatural. So all things unnatural, what is unnatural? Being out of balance is unnatural. Being in a state of balance is natural. Look at the earth. The earth is constantly moving towards balance. It's constantly trying to, if you have, too many of one particular animal in an area, then something happens to correct it, right? If there's too much of one thing, something else comes in to change and bring things back into harmony, into balance. Balance is nature. So what is unnatural is the state of imbalance that we're currently in, where we have too much of an expression, an over-expression of divine masculine energy. And that is not to say men, because all of us have masculine and energy and feminine energy inside of us, men and women. And it's a balance. The goal through this whole process is to balance, to harmonize our male and our masculine and feminine energies. But because of where we are, and I will talk more about this. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do a whole webinar of some of the stuff I shared at the Spirit Summit that is about what this is. And I think it will definitely share it in probably ways you haven't heard before. About what this process, this whole ascension was really about, which is this process of trying to bring us back into balance, to balance and bring us back into nature. And so this process, it moves you into a time frame and structure which allows you to exist beyond that imbalance, beyond all things unnatural, within a space of communion and connection to the divine. So once we become balanced, we have the connection, right, to the divine. Within that space, your own organism conforms to a reality and expression, thus imparted with the reverence of divine love. So it is possible to get to this new way of being while all this chaos is happening. So that is huge for us to know and to hold, right? To hold on to recognize, right? The space of your own organism, you personally, when you shift, your reality shifts. So you will experience it differently. And I know that is true. You guys know that you can be living around other people and one person can be like, oh, I had the most terrible day ever. And you'll be like, I actually had a really amazing day. And I was in the same place as they were. Like, how did that happen? And it's because you are coming into it, like you're radiating your truth from inside of you and creating your reality. Yeah. All right, last paragraph, they say experience is ever shifting, and a life of turmoil is often met with experiences worth knowing. So this is kind of a lovely summing up, is basically saying that things are always changing, and when you have a life of turmoil, which many of you chose coming here, many of you came from very, very difficult experiences because you planned, ambitious souls that you are, planned to get a lot out of this life. So that turmoil is often met with experiences worth knowing. So there's ways that we grow from our hardship. But in these times before you now, the stage is set for change and difference. So the stage is set, it's happening, right? This arousal of the human mind, the swelling of the consciousness, it draws you forward to a perspective of clarity. So this is what's on the books for all of us. From within this new stance, you gather all that has been light and life. Draw it in from past endowments and recreate a new instantiation of existence, benefiting from all that's past, informing what is now the gift of an unbridled future. And this is really referencing this. They've been telling us that we have the opportunity to process all of our past karma, all of our past lives. We have access to all of our past lives in this life. That's never been the case before. We can draw everything in, all of the junk that we created for ourselves in past experiences. We can draw all that in and heal it. And we can gather all that has been, as they say, light and life, all of the good things from those past lives, draw those in from past endowments. And past endowment is the past gift of being alive, these past lives that we've had, and recreate a new, and same thing with past gifts. So it could be related to your spiritual gifts too. So draw it in from past endowments and recreate a new instantiation of existence, a new way of living going forward, benefiting from all that's past. So taking all the good stuff, informing what is now the gift of an unbridled future. So creating for ourselves a new way of living in freedom without that kind of karma anymore. Yeah, right. Living in balance, in harmony. right? Bring it, says Deborah. Hey, Debbie. Yeah, exactly, right? And she says, unbridled future. Love it. Yep. This takes the term catching the wave to a whole new level. Yep. You said that before. That is just, it's super true. So amazing, amazing message. Like I said, I got this one. I had to sit with it because it just feels like there is so much power in this one. Wow. So, all right, you guys, I really appreciate you sharing this message with me. It is a potent one. I hope you guys have a beautiful, beautiful weekend. I'm sending you lots of love, and I will see you guys next Friday Live. Lots of kisses. Bye, you guys.